Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with this truth. The only people who never fail are the ones who never try. And trust me, that's not a category you want to belong to. You see, we live in a culture obsessed with perfection, obsessed with outcomes, obsessed with image. But real success, that's built in the mud, in the mess, in the moments when nothing goes right and yet we show up again. That's the real secret. Every successful person you admire has a catalog of failures behind them. But do you know what separates them from the rest? They didn't stop. They didn't say, well, I guess that's it. No, they asked, what did I learn? How do I get better? They used failure as fuel. When I started in business, I thought I had to get it right the first time. I avoided mistakes like they were poison. But the truth, every single one of my greatest growth moments came right after I failed, spectacularly. One bad hire taught me how to hire right. One lost client taught me the power of follow-up. One failed launch taught me how to study the market. Failure isn't something we need to avoid. Failure is something we need to invite. You grow through what you go through, and if you're scared to fail, let me be honest with you. You're not ready for success. Because the version of you who can handle success isn't the version you are right now. That version is forged through adversity, through tough decisions, through the fall and the rise. So don't envy the people who look like they have it all figured out. They've been through it quietly, privately, and the only difference between them and you is this: they didn't let failure define them. They let it refine them. I want you to make bold moves, take risks, and trust your gut. And when it doesn't go according to plan, and it won't, that's okay, that's part of it. The right way up often starts with a fall. Here's a mindset shift for you. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the path to success. Every single no is one step closer to the yes. That changes everything. Every loss is just making room for the win. Every closed door is forcing you to build your own. So today, I want you to walk away with this. Failure is not the end. It's evidence that you are trying, that you are alive, that you are chasing something meaningful. And the people who succeed, they're the ones who understand that failure doesn't break you. It builds you. Failure builds resilience because it forces us to experience discomfort, doubt, and disappointment. 3 emotions most people spend their lives avoiding. But the truth is, those very emotions are where transformation begins. When everything is going well, when you're succeeding easily, when doors are opening and people are clapping, you're not being stretched, you're not being tested, and without tests, without pressure, there's no growth. Resilience isn't built in moments of ease. It's built in the exact moments when you feel like quitting but choose to keep going. Imagine the first time you failed at something you truly cared about. Maybe it was a job interview that didn't go your way. Maybe it was a business launch that fell flat. Maybe it was a relationship you tried hard to maintain, but it still ended. That sting you felt, that sinking disappointment, that was the first brick in the foundation of your resilience. Because whether you realized it or not, that failure gave you a choice. You could either sit in the failure and let it define you, or you could stand up, dust yourself off, and try again with more wisdom than before. The people who grow, the ones who ultimately succeed, are the ones who chose the second path. Resilience is not inherited. It's not given. It's earned through lived experience, and failure is life's greatest teacher in that classroom. When things go wrong, that's when you learn who you really are, not when you're on stage accepting an award or when everyone is congratulating you on a milestone. It's when you're alone, questioning yourself, wondering if you should keep going. That's where real character is built. In my early career, I faced rejections that would have shattered a less resilient version of myself. There were days I walked into meetings confident in my pitch, only to be told I wasn't ready. There were moments where my ideas were dismissed, my voice was ignored, and my effort wasn't recognized. Each of those moments felt like mini defeats, but every single time I failed, I got stronger. Not just emotionally stronger, but strategically smarter. I started to anticipate problems before they arose. I began learning how to read the room, how to adjust my communication, how to rebuild my systems. That's the beauty of failure. It sharpens your instincts in a way that success never can. People often ask me, how do you stay confident when things go wrong? And my answer is always the same. I don't stay confident. I stay committed, because confidence is temporary. It wavers, but commitment, that's what keeps you going. And it's resilience that fuels that commitment. Resilience says, this hurts, but it's not the end. Resilience says, this didn't work, but I can work smarter next time. Resilience reminds you that success isn't about always being right. It's about always being ready to respond when things go wrong. When I look at the leaders I admire most, they all have one thing in common. They've failed more than most people have ever dared to try. But the reason they are where they are isn't because of talent or luck, it's because they didn't let failure stop them. They developed thick skin, quick recovery times, and a mindset that saw every failure as feedback. That's what resilience does. It turns setbacks into setups for comebacks. Think about an athlete training for a marathon. Their muscles don't get stronger by walking casually around the block. Their muscles grow because they endure pain. They push past the burn. They embrace exhaustion. Failure works the same way. It tears the muscle of your comfort zone so that you can rebuild it stronger. You become more resourceful, more determined, more patient, and most importantly, you begin to believe in your ability to handle hard things. You can't outsource resilience. You can't delegate it to someone else on your team. You can't write about it in a book and instantly possess it. You have to live through the failures and get back up repeatedly until rising after a fall becomes second nature. That's when you become unstoppable, not because you never fall, but because falling doesn't scare you anymore. And here's what's truly powerful: resilience compounds. The more you face failure, the more your capacity expands. What used to devastate you barely disrupts you now. What once felt like the end of the road becomes just a speed bump. You stop fearing failure and start respecting it, because you know now it's not the end of your story. It's just the rough draft of your breakthrough. Failure builds resilience, and resilience unlocks a version of you that success alone can't access. So the next time you fail, and you will, don't shrink, don't retreat, and definitely don't waste time pretending it didn't happen. Own it, study it, grow from it. Because on the other side of that failure is a stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable version of you, one that doesn't just chase success but earns it, one resilient step at a time. Learning lives in mistakes, because mistakes are the only honest indicators that we're doing something new, something bold, something that stretches us. You don't make mistakes when you're playing small. You don't make mistakes when you're repeating old patterns and following someone else's blueprint. You make mistakes when you're brave enough to try something you haven't mastered yet, and that's where the real education begins. You can read books, attend workshops, listen to mentors, and yes, all of those are valuable. But the deepest lessons, the ones that really reshape your thinking and behavior, are the ones you earn through personal failure. When you make a mistake, you're forced to confront your assumptions. You're faced with evidence that what you believed or what you expected didn't work. That confrontation is powerful. It shows you where your blind spots are. It reveals weaknesses you didn't know existed in your plan, in your team, or even in your mindset. And the faster you recognize the lesson in the mistake, the faster you evolve. Mistakes don't delay success. They accelerate it if you're paying attention. There have been times in my life where I thought I was doing everything right. I had a solid plan, a motivated team, and I believed we were heading toward a clear win, and then suddenly, something didn't land. The launch underperformed, the partnership fell apart, the audience didn't respond, and in those moments, the easy reaction would have been frustration or blame. But the real growth came when I chose to ask, what did I miss? What was this trying to teach me? That single question changed how I approached mistakes. Instead of treating them like proof of failure, I started treating them like a feedback loop. Because here's the thing, mistakes talk. They communicate exactly where you need to adjust. But if you're too proud, too defensive, or too impatient to listen, you miss the gold they're offering. Some of the smartest pivots I've ever made in business came directly after a misstep, not before. Not during planning, but after the mistake forced me to reconsider my strategy. There's wisdom embedded in every error, but only if you're willing to extract it. I want you to stop being afraid of messing up. I want you to stop thinking that a mistake means you're not good enough or not ready. That's not true. Mistakes mean you're in motion. They mean you're committed. They mean you're daring to do something meaningful. The only people who don't make mistakes are the ones who never move forward, who never innovate, who stay stuck in the illusion of safety. And that's not where growth happens. That's not where leaders are made. When we allow ourselves to learn from our mistakes without attaching shame to them, we gain clarity, and clarity is one of the most powerful assets in leadership. It helps you make faster decisions. It helps you coach your team more effectively. It helps you see problems before they escalate, but that level of clarity doesn't come from success. It comes from analyzing where you fell short and identifying exactly why. We're conditioned to hide our mistakes, to minimize them, to spin them so we don't look bad. But that's a missed opportunity. The best leaders I know openly talk about what went wrong. They share the process of how they discovered what didn't work and what they learned from it, because that transparency builds trust. It builds culture, and it builds a team that isn't afraid to take risks. In fact, in high-performing organizations, mistakes aren't punished. They are studied. There are systems in place to debrief and assess what went wrong and how to prevent it next time. That mindset encourages creativity. It empowers people to step outside the box and challenge the status quo. But if you create an environment where mistakes are feared, you also create an environment where growth is limited. I've seen it time and time again. A leader avoids risk, plays it safe, refuses to admit when something didn't work, and they stagnate. On the other hand, a leader who leans into mistakes, who shares the lesson, who adapts in real time, that's someone who is constantly leveling up. And that mindset becomes contagious. Their team begins to adopt it. It becomes part of the DNA of the business. If you want to become the kind of person who builds long-term, meaningful success, you need to stop chasing perfection and start chasing growth. Growth comes from engagement. Engagement comes from trying, and trying means you will fail sometimes. That's not a flaw, that's a feature. It's part of the process. Every mistake you've made so far has given you data. Use that data. Don't ignore it. Don't regret it. Don't wish it away. Learn from it. Let it guide your next move, so the next time something goes wrong, don't panic, don't freeze, don't beat yourself up. Step back, ask yourself what this moment is here to teach you. The faster you learn that lesson, the faster you unlock the next level, because every mistake, no matter how small or how painful, carries a message. And if you're wise enough to listen, that message becomes your advantage. That's how you build wisdom. That's how you build leadership. And that's exactly how you build success, from the lessons living in every mistake. Success is a process, not a point, because there is no single moment when you arrive and everything is suddenly perfect, complete, or final. We're taught to think of success as a destination, something you chase, reach, and then rest in. But in reality, success is more like a moving train. Just when you think you've caught up to it, it keeps going. You never really arrive. Instead, you evolve. And if you don't learn to fall in love with that evolution, you will always feel like you're behind, even when you're doing better than most. What most people don't realize is that success doesn't show up as one big event. It's the accumulation of small decisions, daily habits, repeated risks, and constant adjustments. The win you see publicly, whether it's a promotion, a profitable business, a best-selling book, or an award, is the visible outcome of invisible effort done consistently over time. People will call it an overnight success, but they never see the years behind it, the late nights, the rejections, the fears, the failures, the quiet moments of doubt where you still chose to show up anyway. That's the real process. That's the real success. I've met so many people who spend their entire lives waiting for that one moment when they can say, "I made it." But what I've learned is that the minute you get close to one goal, a new one appears. You scale one level and suddenly there's a bigger challenge waiting for you, and that's not a flaw in the system. It's the beauty of growth. Success continues to expand as you expand. You are never finished, and that's the most empowering truth you can embrace. This is why people who tie their identity to a single achievement often feel lost afterward. The athlete who retires, the entrepreneur who sells the business, the executive who steps down. If success was just that one thing, what happens when it ends? You feel empty, but if success is a process, if it's about who you become, what you learn, how you adapt, and what impact you create along the way, then it never really ends. It keeps unfolding as you grow. And when you understand that success is a process, you also stop rushing. You stop comparing your timeline to someone else's. You stop panicking when results take time because you realize that every season serves a purpose. Some seasons are for building, some are for learning, some are for healing, some are for scaling, but they all matter. You can't skip steps in the process and expect a stable outcome. A shortcut might get you attention, but it won't give you foundation. And without a foundation, you can't sustain what you build. I've had moments where I thought I was behind. I saw others doing more, achieving more, growing faster, and in those moments, I had to remind myself, success isn't about speed. It's about alignment. Are you aligned with your values? Are you building something that matters to you? Are you staying consistent even when no one is watching? That's the process. That's what leads to outcomes you can actually be proud of. And here's another truth. When you embrace success as a process, you also begin to see the setbacks differently. They're no longer failures that threaten your identity. They become checkpoints, moments of redirection, feedback loops that help you course correct. You stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as part of the route. You don't quit when it gets hard because you understand this is part of the process, not the end of the story. Think about the people you admire, the ones whose journeys truly inspire you. Their stories aren't powerful because they had one big win. Their stories are powerful because of the process they went through to get there. The courage to keep showing up, the lessons they learned along the way, the evolution you witnessed in them, that's what we connect with, that's what we remember. If you measure success only by a final result, you will miss the beauty of the climb. You'll overlook the power in progress, and you'll rob yourself of the pride that comes from knowing you stayed the course. But when you honor the process, when you commit to the path even when it's unclear, even when it's lonely, even when it's slow, you build a kind of success that doesn't just look good but feels good, and that matters more than any title, trophy, or number in your bank account. So keep going even when you don't see the full picture yet. Keep building even when the results aren't immediate. Keep believing even when no one else understands your vision. Because if you're showing up, learning, growing, adjusting, you're not behind. You're in process, and that's exactly where success begins and exactly where it continues. You can't grow in comfort because comfort is the space where nothing changes. It feels safe, predictable, and easy, but it's also where dreams go to die. Growth requires friction. It requires discomfort, pressure, and the willingness to be stretched beyond your current capacity. Every breakthrough you admire, every person you look up to, every business that has changed the game, none of them were built in the safety of the comfort zone. They were forged in challenge, in uncertainty, in moments where quitting would have been easier but growth was chosen instead. The truth is, comfort is seductive. It whispers that you're doing enough, that staying still is fine, that maybe you don't need to push anymore. It rewards you with short-term ease while stealing your long-term potential. The most dangerous place to be is not in failure, it's in comfort. Because in failure, at least you're trying. In comfort, you're just existing. And nothing great was ever built by someone who simply existed. When you're in a season of discomfort, when things feel uncertain, when the challenge feels too big, when the path ahead feels blurry, that's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're on the edge of growth, that you're doing something new, something that stretches your identity. Discomfort is a signal that you are expanding beyond what you've previously known. And that's where your next level lies. I've never experienced a real transformation during the easy times. The biggest leaps in my business, in my leadership, and in my personal development came when I was navigating something uncomfortable. Whether it was hiring a team when I didn't feel ready, launching a product that flopped, or making a decision that felt risky but necessary, every growth point started with a discomfort I could have backed away from. But I didn't. I leaned into it because I knew that comfort wasn't going to get me to where I said I wanted to go. Growth is painful because it requires us to change how we think, how we behave, and how we see ourselves. That internal shift is never easy. It challenges the old version of you, the one who wanted results without resistance. But the person you're becoming, they don't live in that old identity. They live on the other side of discomfort, in the space where you face fear, take responsibility, and act even when it's hard. We all want success, but most people don't want to feel the tension that comes with it. They don't want to risk judgment, criticism, or failure, but you can't have growth without those things. You can't build confidence without facing fear. You can't build skill without first being unskilled. You can't become resilient without being tested. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the entrance fee to greatness, and what's amazing is that discomfort doesn't last forever. What feels terrifying today becomes normal tomorrow. The thing that once made your heart race eventually becomes just another part of your routine. That's how you know you've grown, and the minute that comfort sets back in, that's your cue to level up again. To raise the bar, to chase a new challenge, because the growth never stops, and if you're intentional about it, neither does your impact. I want you to reflect on the areas of your life where you've stopped growing. Maybe it's your business, your health, your mindset, or your relationships. Ask yourself, have I been choosing comfort over progress? Have I been avoiding discomfort out of fear? And if the answer is yes, I want you to understand that's not a weakness. It's just awareness. And awareness is power because now you get to choose differently. You get to stop shrinking to fit into spaces that feel familiar and start showing up for the life that challenges you to evolve. That doesn't mean recklessness. Growth isn't about chaos, it's about intentional discomfort, choosing the harder conversation because it builds trust, making the investment because it builds future revenue, hiring the person who challenges you because it pushes your leadership. Discomfort doesn't mean you're in danger, it means you're on the edge of transformation. If you're chasing goals that don't require you to grow, they're not big enough. If your vision for your life doesn't make you a little uncomfortable, it's not bold enough. The life you're dreaming of will demand a version of you that doesn't exist yet, and becoming that version will require decisions that feel unfamiliar, actions that scare you, and a tolerance for being stretched in ways you didn't expect. But let me tell you this, it's worth it. Every uncomfortable step you take will lead you to a more empowered, more capable, more impactful version of yourself. You'll look back and realize the discomfort was never there to punish you. It was there to prepare you, it was refining you for the next level, and that next level is not reserved for the fearless, it's reserved for the willing, willing to be uncomfortable, willing to get it wrong, willing to try again. So the next time you feel resistance, don't retreat, lean in, trust the discomfort, because comfort won't change you, but discomfort will, and if you keep choosing growth over ease, you won't just succeed, you'll become someone who can sustain it. Fail fast, learn faster. That mindset alone can change the trajectory of your life, your business, and your leadership. Most people spend their energy trying to avoid failure, planning, analyzing, double checking, waiting for the perfect moment. But in reality, the longer you wait to act, the longer you delay your growth. The goal should never be to avoid failure. The goal should be to fail quickly, gather the lesson, and apply it immediately so you can improve and move forward with momentum. The faster you fail, the sooner you find out what doesn't work. That feedback is pure gold. It allows you to pivot, adjust, and course correct while others are still overthinking. You're not behind when you fail. You're ahead because you're actively participating in your own progress. There's a big difference between being busy and being in motion. Failing fast keeps you in motion, while fear of failure keeps you frozen in analysis. And you can't lead, grow, or build anything meaningful from a place of fear. We've been conditioned to associate failure with shame. From a young age, we're taught that mistakes mean we're wrong, we're not ready, or we're not good enough. But in the world of high performance and entrepreneurship, mistakes are your greatest resource. The sooner you stop resisting them, the faster you start evolving. One of the most powerful decisions you can make is to reframe failure not as something to avoid, but as something to pursue with intention. Every wrong turn reveals a clearer direction. Every no gets you closer to your yes, and every flop teaches you what refinement looks like. I've made decisions in my career that didn't land. I've launched products that didn't perform. I've hired people that didn't align. I've chosen strategies that didn't produce the results I wanted. But every single time I failed fast, I learned faster. I didn't sit in the failure for weeks. I asked, what worked? What didn't? What can I do differently now? That rhythm of rapid reflection is the key to acceleration. You cannot grow if you're afraid to experiment, and you cannot lead if you need every step to be guaranteed before you take it. Most breakthroughs don't come from sitting on ideas. They come from testing them. Action creates clarity. Trying reveals truths that theory can't. When you move, you get real data. That data gives you power. Power to adapt, power to focus, power to shift. You'll never get that kind of clarity by waiting for perfection, because perfection is a myth. Progress is real, and progress is messy, but it's also magnetic. People respect leaders who move, who try, who test, who admit when something didn't work and then pivot with purpose. There's strength in that. Confidence doesn't come from always being right. It comes from knowing you can recover quickly when you're wrong. That's what builds agility, and agility is a superpower in business. When you can recover faster than your competition, you win. When you can pivot with less resistance, you lead. And when you can experiment without ego, you learn more than anyone else in the room. The irony is, the more you're willing to fail fast, the less you actually fail, because you gain insight so quickly that your next moves become sharper, cleaner, and more aligned. People who fear failure tend to fail bigger because they wait too long. They wait until the mistake is too costly, but if you test early, learn fast, and keep improving, you build a runway of small, manageable failures that become stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks. This is how innovation works. It's never one perfect idea. It's iteration. It's testing, tweaking, and improving. If you look at the most successful brands and leaders, they are constantly evolving because they are constantly learning. And they're constantly learning because they're not afraid to get it wrong. You can't discover the right way until you move through what's wrong. And the quicker you do that, the closer you get to your breakthrough. This applies to every area of life. Business, leadership, relationships, personal growth. Want to improve your communication? Fail fast in a few hard conversations. Want to launch a new product? Get it out, get feedback, refine it. Want to grow your leadership? Make decisions, get the result, adjust your approach. The people who rise are not the ones who make the fewest mistakes. They are the ones who recover the fastest and apply the lesson immediately. So don't sit in fear. Don't wait until the moment is perfect. Don't convince yourself that risk equals recklessness. It doesn't. Risk is necessary, and the faster you engage with it, the more control you gain. Failure doesn't weaken you. It sharpens you, but only if you allow yourself to move through it quickly enough to access the wisdom it holds. Fail fast, learn faster. That's how you grow with intention, lead with agility, and build success that's sustainable. Stop waiting. Start testing. Keep learning. The faster you fail, the faster you win.